Coming up, we're going to continue our discussion about Nick in the 90s, talking about the original animated programs or the Nicktoons of the 90s in this episode of DIS Pop. DIS Pop is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect vacation. You can visit them on the web at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hello, everybody. I am your host, joined by my co-host, the heifer to my Rocko. Is that insulting to you? Craig Williams.
No, hoy hoy, everyone.
I should have said the best of big head to my Rocko.
No, that would imply that we clash a lot, and I don't think we do.
Okay. Well, what Nicktoon would you have liked me to identify you as? One of the Aaahh monsters? I feel like...
I think I would have been the Phil to your Lil.
Yeah, that would be a good one. That was appropriate. Appropriate. Now that word doesn't sound real. Anyway, so we talked about Nickelodeon and its creation up through pretty much the 90s or today in one of our last episodes, and we thought now we could talk about what we feel like was our prime time of Nickelodeon, which is Nick in the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except, as you already mentioned, we are only covering the Nicktoons in this episode.
Yes, original Nicktoons. Animated solely Nickelodeon.
Yes.
90s.
Not so sorry. If you came here looking for Hey Dude and all that and Clarissa and, the secret world of Alex Mack.
Well, you're just going to have to hold on for one of the next episodes of DIS Pop, which is probably the one that's going to follow this one, to be honest with you, unless something big happens between when we recorded this and then. I don't know. So this is, all these episodes are pre-recorded, but I am not in the country right now as this is airing, I don't think. Actually, maybe I am back in the country by now. Who knows? It's a mystery. I'm just a world traveler like that. So
yeah, I believe you will be in the country, but you'll be very tired and jet-lagged.
Yes, yeah. So this is, we've been wanting to do this episode for a while. We've been wanting to talk about, we did the Disney Afternoon a while back, and then that got us just thinking about, I essentially like the TV show that's the TV shows of we got off the school bus and we're watching shows either right before we did homework or right after we did homework. Yep. And I can't not think of Nicktoons or Fox Kids or the Disney Afternoon were all a part of these for me.
Oh yeah, like I said in the last episode we did on Nickelodeon, this was, for me, Nickelodeon was summertime. That's when it really struck up, when you just have all day off and you're just watching their programming block from the time you wake up all the way through the time your parents finally kick you out of the house and say you need to get outside.
Yeah. That's essentially, that was when the 1 p.m., 2 p.m. rolled around, and it was now I've gotten desperate and I'm watching USA, programs on USA that I shouldn't be watching.
I know, and it's I slowly progressed into from Nicktoons, and then I feel like the next thing after that I was just watching terrible movies on repeat during the summer times.
Like Mom and Dad Save the World?
Well, no, started with Adam Sandler movies, and then I think once Dude, Where's My Car came out, that kind of went into a very big rotation for me.
Oh, yes. But
Nicktoons.
Well, sticking with the splat here. So the Nicktoons of the 90s, and I guess we can talk about all of the ones of the 90s.
Yeah, we'll just go over them again real quick and then start giving our opinions.
Because some of them I didn't really, the later ones I didn't really watch as much. I saw, but I wasn't as familiar with. But I also have nephews that are 10 years younger than me. So cousins, I'm sorry, not nephews. I do have nephews, but
bless you.
Yes. So these are going to include Doug, Rugrats, The Ren and Stimpy Show, Rocko's Modern Life, Aaahh Real Monsters, Hey Arnold, KaBlam, Angry Beavers, CatDog, Oh Yeah Cartoons, I don't know what that is, The Wild Thornberrys, Rocket Power, and that Rocket Power was actually the last one of the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that it got into As Told by Ginger, The Fairly Odd Parents, which I thought was the 90s, so I guess I remember that a little later, because I'm familiar with that one, but Invader Zim, Action League Now, Chalk Zone, it goes on. Jimmy Neutron showed up, then the Rugrats had their resurgence with All Grown Up, which we'll talk about that one a little bit, because we have to. But yeah, there's something on that channel right now called Pig, Goat, Banana Cricket. What in God's name is that?
I don't understand it anymore, but that's probably the same way that, people one generation up from ours, our parents looked at the crap that we were watching, saying, "What in the world is this nonsense?" And so, yeah, I mean, I try not to judge what the kids are watching these
What
days.
these kids are watching these days.
Except the Disney Channel stuff. That clearly has gone downhill. Where Nickelodeon, I feel like the spirit has remained since what was established in the 90s.
I mean, and honestly, because we got to talk about it a little bit, at San Diego Comic-Con, we got to see a trailer for Rocko's Modern Life, as well as the Hey Arnold movie.
And with Rocko, it was like they didn't skip a beat on it.
No, the animation looks great, and it looks identical. It just looks cleaner.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's that classic animation style, and the voices, all the original cast is there, and the trailer's like 2.5 minutes long, and it's like it sees them returning from outer space from where they've been since the 90s, and like having to deal with modern technology, and Rocko's struggling with that.
Yeah,
So.
and then like seamlessly going into kind of a new updated version of the opening intro.
Is it not the B-52s anymore?
No, it did that, but like instead of some of like the 90s references in there, they added just like the entire thing. It was updated to a modern twist, but it just seamlessly rolled right into the intro.
Yeah.
Where before it just seemed like a weird teaser, but then it's like, oh no, it's happening. It's going right into it. It was so cool to watch.
Yeah, it has me like incredibly excited for it. I can't wait because Rocko, of all those shows, Rocko's Modern Life was always my favorite. I do. It's hard because a lot of them are really good. If you had to pick one, what would you pick?
I think I've said it before. For me, it's Ren and Stimpy. But
I would have
Rocko
picked you as a Rugrats or a Doug.
I think I enjoyed those more while I was growing up. As an adult, watching them back now, I feel like I really love watching Rocko as well as Ren and Stimpy.
Well, you get a lot more of those jokes now that you're older too.
Get a lot more of the jokes, and it's just beyond that. I feel like the animation actually, while kind of disjointed on both of those shows, it's actually it's more artistic in a way. And then I've talked about Ren and Stimpy before. I love the blend of classical music with the grotesque imagery. Rocko was kind of the same way. It was a disgusting show at points.
It was
just
very
really
raunchy.
vile and raunchy, and I enjoyed it back then. Rocko was more appealing to me back then, but than Ren and Stimpy was. But now I have a great appreciation for both of those shows. I think they're both wonderful, and something like Rocko has stuck with me when every now and then I'll just start like kind of humming in my brain like RECYCLE.
Oh yeah, you can't not sing that song. Like
don't you CONSERVE conserve? Don't you POLLUTE
pollute? I say that every time I do the recycle. I pull the recycling bin out of my house. So, well, we'll start at the beginning. We'll go through them all. So the very first, the one credited as the first is it was really three at once. They premiered simultaneously. It was Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren and Stimpy show. And but we'll start with Doug, which was created by Jim Jenkins. And as I was looking these up, I learned some things about these shows I didn't know, which was like Doug was originally pitched as a children's book. And so and I also didn't know it was like semi-biographical, autobiographical as well, which was kind of interesting. So the show, obviously, it focuses on the early adolescent life of Douglas Doug Funny, who we all know and love. What?
No, I'm sorry. I was channeling my inner Mr. Dink.
Oh, okay.
Douglas.
Who experiences common predicaments while attending school in his new hometown of Bluffington. Doug narrates each one of the stories, and the show incorporates a lot of like imagination sequences. Like one of my favorites that I come to mind is the Think Big. Remember when they're trying to shoot the music video and he's disagreeing with the friend whose name I can't remember, the girl, like Patty's friend, but I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
But they had that whole Think Big and the Beats. It was the Beats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With their hit songs like Killer Tofu.
Yes.
I Need More Allowance. Oh, hey.
Banging on a trash can. Knocking on a street light. That was the one I was thinking of. But yeah, so Doug is mostly autobiographical, inspired by Jim Jenkins' childhood in Virginia. Did you know the soundtrack is mostly excuse my lisp, mostly mouth noises?
Yeah.
I mean, the boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, no.
As a kid, I don't know that I like registered that sort of. And it's just all whistling.
Yeah, it's all done like that.
That's just kind of, it's cool. I feel like that's an underappreciated, I don't want to say talent, but underappreciated part of the show. I mean, it is a talent, but
Yeah, no, the show was. I've actually been watching a lot of it lately. I feel like, well, it's really accessible now that it's one of the shows available on Hulu with all the old Nick shows.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
It's on Hulu, and then you can also it airs very often on the Splat on Teen Nick when they run their
They
program.
do the overnight
Walk at
program,
Night. Yeah. I feel like I catch a lot of, there's always Rugrats on there. I feel like I catch a lot of Doug, but I did start watching it back on Hulu, kind of because I wanted to start revisiting that, see if Doug was as good as I remembered it, and because as you mentioned, like anything with the beats, usually you always instantly remember the songs from it, and the Honker Burger, all the memories from that, and so I just wanted to watch it, and it really does still hold up to this day. It's definitely more. It's less mature than I felt like it was back then.
yeah, when you're a kid,
But
and you're like,
then,
Doug's got his life together.
But
Him
then
and pork
again,
chop.
when I was a kid watching it, I was probably like 5 years old watching it. So like seeing how this 10-year-old.
Oh my God, is he only 10?
Kind of like, I think he's like 10, 11, 12, right in that area.
Yeah.
Maybe 13, maybe.
Well, I think he's going into high school
Yeah.
when it goes into the Disney age.
Yeah, so
that or junior high, but-
yeah, exactly. So watching that, it's kind of like, okay, this is like this is mature in a way, because you're seeing how an older person, kind of the same way I felt like watching a lot of the live action shows, as being someone way
Sabrina?
younger.
Yeah,
than
I was like,
it, but-
man, Sabrina's got her life together. Or I mean, Sabrina was a ABC show, but Clarissa even.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, she's so smart. She just knows how to get around her parents.
But there's something about Doug, though, the same way with Rugrats, the imagination that kind of just took hold, and it was very much like in a similar vein to like the Muppet Babies, is that they just make these stuff up in their heads. Like, you have to wonder, did they have a head injury at some point in time? And that's why they constantly get lost in their own imaginations. But excellent show, and I love watching it still.
Well, it ran for, it originally consisted of 4 seasons, ran from 1991 to 1994 with 52 episodes. And then Disney bought the show in 1996, and they called it brand spanking new Doug.
Yeah.
I remember that. And then later changing the title to just Disney Doug. And then it ran for 3 seasons, 65 episodes until June 1999.
Yeah.
So it was on for a while. I remember in costuming at Hollywood Studios, they had a big giant, like when you would exit costuming, there was a big giant poster for Doug's first movie up there.
Well, that there used to be a Doug show at Hollywood Studios.
Yeah,
too.
I'd heard about that too afterwards. And now I've seen a couple of pictures of it.
It's terrible.
Yeah, that's what I heard. So
Disney killed Doug, and the worst part is when it went to Disney, it felt like everything Doug also disappeared from Nickelodeon, and so it's like that's also why it kind of fell out of my memories. Once it went to Nickelodeon, or once it went to Disney, it just disappeared, and so you're kind of left with repeats of all the other shows, and that's why I think those started to creep up and overpass Doug.
it was like an accidental loss too. I don't think Nickelodeon actively was like, no, we're not going to renew it. It was just it was the beginning of this original animation programming, and the way they didn't have the efficient. I don't even know if it's efficient today, but they didn't have the production assembly line the way they do nowadays with this type of animation and with their process. And so, like, the way contracts worked and everything, I think it just slipped through and they got it. Like, Disney just grabbed it because they knew people liked it. So when it switched from Nick to Disney too, Billy West did not reprise his voice role of Doug either, which was a shame. He had apparently, from the beginning of Doug to when this contract renewal happened, he had gotten a lot more popular.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's right in this time period is when he would have started picking up to be Philip Fry on Futurama.
Yeah, I guess right around then, the late 90s, yeah. And then the same happened for the voice of Roger too. So there was two different characters that had different voices. And as anything with Disney, like you mentioned, there was a stage show, Doug's first movie, which was actually the conclusion of the TV show as well. So I feel like they were filthy liars in saying first movie. They just should have called it Doug. They implied that there would be another one by saying first, and it just made me sad. But my goal someday would be to meet the costume character. I kind of hope they come out of retirement. Like,
No.
I know as terrible as they are, but those random like special DVC events and stuff like that. That would be cool. But yeah, that's Doug.
That is Doug.
And then that will bring us to Rugrats, which also had a little bit of an interesting history here too. But created by Arlene Klasky, Gabor Suppo, I don't know how to say that name, and Paul Germain.
I've always said Klasky Shupo.
Shupo? Okay.
Something like that.
Like CSUPO with a
I've driven past their headquarters in Hollywood. I guess that's where the Nickelodeon time capsule may be right now.
Oh.
The one that...
I remember.
Yeah.
The one they buried in the 90s, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
There was like a big deal about that.
I think it got moved there because that's like the
creation.
It's not the headquarters of Nickelodeon by any means, but I think that's where it is. I could be wrong. Probably wrong.
I don't know. We can look that up for the live action one and talk about that one in there. But so the show, if you're not familiar, and I don't know how, if you're not familiar, someone did you a disservice in life. But the show focuses on a group of toddlers, most prominently Tommy, Chucky, the twins Phil and Lil, and Angelica, and their day-to-day lives involving common life experiences that become adventures in the baby's imaginations. A lot of these earlier shows were about, like what you said, Muppet Babies, Doug. It was all about going into a kid's imagination. And it was kind of like the parents were never really aware of what was going on with the kids. So the show initially ran from 91 until 1994 with 65 episodes, and then went on hiatus until production resumed in 1996 with 3 specials, and then new episodes began in 1997. Which is kind of crazy. They say it got really, really popular after those initial first 4 seasons, and then so you think about it, like I always thought about the show as always being popular, but it was because of the limited shows, but the constant running of the cartoons, people were exposed to it a lot more. But from 1995 to the year 2000, it was the highest rated show on Nickelodeon. And Rugrats was a noteworthy among contemporary children's television for depicting observant, identifiable Jewish families. Because I believe Tommy and I believe the Pickles are Jewish, right? There was a Hanukkah special.
There was the Hanukkah, the Passover episode.
Yeah, Jewish and Christian religion groups gave the show high praises for their special holiday episodes. Oh, right there. I wrote it down after that. Nonetheless, at one point, apparently the Anti-Defamation League and the Washington Post editorial page did not care for its depiction of Tommy Pickles' maternal grandparents, accusing the character designs of resembling Nazi-era depictions of Jews. And I was like, ooh, I mean, I don't. It's like the show raises up and does really well here, and then somebody's got a complaint that you're like, oh God, like, so I don't know,
No. I do have to butt in for a second. The
Yeah,
time capsule is in the new Nickelodeon studios that was built for that, so I was wrong.
Okay,
There is a new Nickelodeon studio.
It is in the current where they currently operate.
Yes, they moved it from the Nick Hotel to Nickelodeon Studios. Yeah,
cool. I heard it's a really great place to work.
Because if I didn't bring it up soon, in the time that it took to like get to it at the end, we would have had 10 comments about it. How do you not know where it's at?
Yeah, how dare you? The Rugrats have a star in Hollywood Walk of Fame, as animated characters do. There were 3 films, and you said you saw them. I've not seen them all. I've seen the first 2.
I've definitely seen the first one, but I didn't see Paris, and I didn't know there was a third one actually.
Yes, you did.
Is it a crossover with the Wild Thornberrys?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And in 1998 was the Rugrats movie, which saw the addition of Dill Pickles. And I remember that one, watching that with my cousin, because he was really young at that point and really into this. And that movie made over $140 million worldwide on a budget of $24 million. So fairly successful. And it was the first non-Disney animated film to do that, to break over $100 million worldwide. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And then that followed in 2000 with Rugrats, was Paris, Rugrats in Paris, the movie, which was also a box office success and apparently had stronger reviews than the first film. So I don't think I've actually seen the whole one all the way through, but I do know it's about Chucky's father getting married again because it added another Rugrat in this movie too.
Yeah.
Because it was it saw 3 new characters. It saw Kimmy, the sister, and then Kira and Fifi. Fifi?
Fifi,
Oh, Fifi.
I think, yeah.
Fifi, yeah. I don't know who Fifi is.
Yeah, I didn't...
But I remember Kimmy.
I remember Kimmy. I wasn't watching the show at all at this point, but I remember it because then...
She's an all grown up.
Well, yeah, once you get to all grown up, I kind of like had to go back and learn about what some of the things happened after I stopped watching.
Yeah, well, and then in 2003 there was like we talked about, the crossover. It was Rugrats Go Wild, so it was between that and the Wild Thornberrys, and it was the least successful of all 3. And I have definitely not seen that. In fact, I thought I dreamt that up. I wasn't 100% sure it was a real movie until I looked it up. I didn't know if it was one of those like dream posters somebody posted on the internet, you know?
Yeah.
But the Rugrats are apparently also slated to appear in a Nicktoons film. So they're getting a treatment as well, I guess, now again. So there was the 10-year anniversary that was called, the special that was called All Growed Up. And that's kind of where they liked how well it did, and then Nickelodeon commissioned the show, and then it was retitled All Grown Up.
Yeah,
and,
I think
that ran for 5 seasons, 2003 to 2008.
Yeah, I think the original special was like a dream sequence that went into it, and then it was popular enough, and it definitely got people that watched it while it was first on the air to come back and revisit.
Well, I thought that was a cute idea of like the jumping forward and you know, like showing them as it was like, especially like you're capturing something people grew up with, and now you've jumped them forward in age. So like those people who were watching when that age are now that age. So I thought that was cool. I used to watch that one every now and then. I think my youngest sister was really into that one. But there were also apparently like 5 other spinoffs that were considered. There was a lot of spinoffs. Like they even there was even one that came out, but it never really aired here. But there was one about Angelica. Just a bunch of other really interesting ones that I didn't really go into. But, you know, if you want to check it out, go into the Rugrats, go down that Rugrats Wikipedia hole, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But then that'll bring us to your favorite here, the Ren and Stimpy show. Created by John... I have no idea how to say this person's name. Crick Falosi?
Oh, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Well, this is the one that had the most trouble at Nickelodeon. The series follows the adventures of the title characters Ren, an emotionally unstable chihuahua, and I did not know this, Stimpy is a cat.
Yeah.
I thought Stimpy was a dog, too. Oh. And I used to watch this show.
Oh, that's why he eats kitty litter.
Well, I guess dogs eat kitty litter, too. That's why I was like confused. But the show was controversial for its off-color humor, sexual innuendo, dark humor, adult jokes, violence, and it had that similar. Rocko's Modern Life had that similar tone as well, but not quite as extreme. This controversy contributed to the production staff's altercations with Nickelodeon Standards and Practices Department. So the show ended on December 16th, 1995 with a total of 5 seasons and 52 episodes. There was a spinoff, apparently, not too long ago, for adult audiences called Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon. Well, I mean, I guess this is a long time ago now. In 2003 on Spike TV, but was like almost immediately canceled after debut. So the series, like I said, centers on Ren, who was voiced by the creator, John Krafalosi, in the first 2 seasons, and then Billy West, seasons 3 through 5. Then there was Stimpson J. Stimpy Cat, who was also voiced by Billy West, I guess the entire time, who was a 3-year-old dim-witted, happy-go-lucky cat. And it was just like this... episode was the shows were just, I don't even know how to describe them. They're just all over the place. They're just random adventures that these guys go on.
They were. My favorite one is where Ren is trying to get like buff and all beefed up, and so Stimpy ends up does a butt transplant to take the fat from his butt to give Ren peck muscles.
Oh, I remember that one.
And that's like one of my absolute favorite episodes ever, just because that is like that's the plot lines you should expect from this show. Is just something completely stupid. Like, oh yeah, no, a ton of butt humor. The weird lumberjacks that were involved in the show too. It just every level of bizarre. But if again, I don't want to keep repeating it, but if you're a fan of just like animation, while grotesque and disgusting, the animation is actually really beautiful, especially when they do the shots where it will just be like a still frame of like a really well drawn picture that's absolutely disgusting and
even
vile.
has like the really sharp noises or like the scream in the background when it does those ones. It had a lot. There was a lot of controversy in this. I read about this and I didn't know, and I kind of vaguely remember some of this. But there was like an episode that kind of had the Pope in it, and they had to change the hat and like remove the cross from the hat. There was episodes that involved the burning of the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights that got removed. There was a sequence involving a severed head at one point. There was a lot. There was a lot in this.
The best way to describe the show is just it was this one long collision montage. And for people out there who don't know what that is, that's when you have a scene that's like either heavy action, disgusting, like something really impactful is happening on screen, but then there's this like soft, quiet background music that just kind of makes it seem like it's all not that bad. So that's basically what the show was, because using that classical score to just underscore every disgusting thing that's happening on screen. Like it's a really from like kind of a film standpoint even to watch. It's very fascinating. So
yeah, I was just reading that they're not going to be involved in the Nicktoons film reboot apparently either. That they were originally trying to get them involved, but Paramount Pictures doesn't want anything to do with Ren and Stimpy.
I feel like the show when it was on the 5 seasons, it was like they captured lightning in a bottle, and it needs to just be left at that. I don't want them to ever try to go back, and it already failed the last time they tried to. They just need to leave this one be.
Well, Mike Judge, the creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill and stuff like that, he credits the success of Beavis and Butthead from Ren and Stimpy, which is really interesting. But yeah, there was just essentially Nickelodeon said, hey, we want to create these kind of like family friendly, like these kind of educational-esque series or whatever, and I don't know how this happened, and it was on the network for so long, but essentially the network was like, this is not a show we asked for, but they kept airing it, so that's on them. But that'll move us on down to my favorite, which was the fourth one after the original ones here, and that is, fourth, right? Yeah, 3, Doug, Rugrats. Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's Modern Life, which was created by Joe Murray. And this ran for 4 seasons, a total of 52 episodes from 1993 until 1996. It was the first in-house animated production. So I would even say this is the first true Nicktoon. But Murray created the title character for an unpublished comic book series in the late 1980s, and then later he reluctantly pitched this to Nickelodeon, thinking they were going to hate it. He developed the Rocko character after visiting a zoo in the Bay Area and coming across a wallaby that seemed to be oblivious to the chaos around him.
Beaver.
What?
The beaver.
The beaver. He submitted it to Nickelodeon thinking he developed Rocko's Modern Life. They thought he was like 100% sure it was going to get rejected, and they picked it up. And the series centers on the surreal life of an anthropomorphic Australian immigrant wallaby named Rocko, as well as his friends, the gluttonous steer Heifer, the neurotic turtle Filbert, and Rocko's faithful dog Spunky, set in the fictional town of O-Town. Everything was O. Everything's always O in this, It was even in the revival, the trailer for the new thing, everything had the O in it. I forget why he just said he liked the letter O or something like that. Like, it just seemed like he loved how people would say, like, the suck-o-matic.
Yeah.
That's from Wayne's World. But, like, but anyway, much of that production staff, this is why this is also important, came together after Rocko ended to work on SpongeBob. And Heifer is SpongeBob.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. But I guess the creator Joe Murray, after the third season, he handed the project off to Steven Hillenburg, who performed most of the work for season 4. And he originally Murray said he was going to leave the production after season 4, but there was nothing after that. I think he's involved though in the new one. I think everyone is involved in the made for TV movie that's coming out. So anyway, for me, I always think about the theme song when I think about Rocko's Modern Life.
Yeah.
So apparently there's like 3 versions. There's the first and original version that can be heard playing throughout the first 2 seasons. Season 1 episodes to be produced, and then the second version of the theme song was the slightly remixed version, and then there's the third version of the film of the theme song, which was performed by Kate Pearson and Fred Schneider from the B-52s. You know, Rocko's Modern Life. I don't know what else I have to say. I mean, it's essentially like the Rocko's Modern Life people are the ones who pitched SpongeBob SquarePants to Nickelodeon in 1997. Murray said of the pitch, if it goes well, it'll be a blessing to us all. And that brought that show premiered in 1999, and it is essentially like the most successful show that Nickelodeon has ever put on the air.
I agree. The thing I love about Rocko is if you kind of look back at it now, I truly believe that this is like a cartoon version of Seinfeld. It's literally a show just kind of about nothing. Just look into the real life experiences that they go through, like the episode where Rocko has to go grocery shopping.
Yeah, that was literally the episode I'm thinking about.
But you know, he has to leave.
He has to deal with the parking lot. He has to deal with the, like,
and then another one of my favorite episodes when they go to the Googleplex, I believe the name of the theater, because there's like a million screens in there, and they're bouncing around from theater to theater, and it's just like. It was always kind of like that. There was nothing ever normal about what was happening in their lives, but it was about nothing. And then there was all the innuendo in this too, like Heifer's parents and his adopted family is all wolves. Which makes no sense because he's a cow, and the grandpa is a blind old one that has to take his teeth out and gum food just to swallow, and he constantly calls Rocko the beaver. Always, just always refers to him as the beaver, and so it just it always had that dirty side to it, and gosh, it's such a great show.
Yeah, and this is one that I've I think they've released it all now on Amazon. But it is one of those ones where you've got to kind of find the unedited episodes too, because they took out some stuff afterwards because they were like, oh, too dirty, you know.
I mean, the name the chicken restaurant they go to is the Choky Chicken.
Yeah, they changed it. Yeah, I remember I was reading about all the altercations, and that was one of the altercations they did afterwards. I mean, Rocko works at a phone sex operator's line in the first season. Oh baby, oh baby.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's just when I'm a kid, you don't really understand that, and then you're like, so that must have been one that was fun for like the adults to watch with us. If there was ever an adult watching that with me, I mean, my mom probably would have never let me keep watching that show, but that leads us into. I feel like the next generation was coming upon us, which was Real Monsters. Which also had Klasky Seppo, who I just said also created.
Rugrats.
Rugrats. Okay,
yes.
That's what I thought. I was like, I've already forgotten, but
and you can tell just in the style itself, it has that. The animation looks more like sketch animation than it actually does, clean lines and everything.
Well, and they worked on, this is why they all look like the Wild Thornberrys, Rocket Power. It all has that same, All Grown Up has all that same stuff, that same feel to it. But yeah, Real Monsters was 1994 until 1997. 4 seasons again, seems to be the magic number on Nickelodeon. 52 episodes. This show was weird. Not weird. It was very unique. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. This for me, I still watched it. I watched it as part of the block, but And I bet nowadays I would actually really love it, just because how much my tastes have changed. But it almost does have this Tim Burton-esque vibe to it.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
And just a little, but very weird.
You know what's great? Have you seen the Funko Pop has released a series of Nicktoon ones? There are not Rocko's Modern Life ones yet, which makes me very upset. But there's a Tommy, a Chucky, and a Reptar, and then there is a so there's a Oblina, Crumb, and Ickis from this show, and I kind of want them because he's got the one with the eyes. Is that one Crumb?
That one's Crumb.
Yeah. That he was my favorite, except for his armpit hair. Ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, essentially the plot of this show is it's about those three. They're young monsters attending a monster school, done by the headmaster, the Gromble. Which you told me this fun thing the other day because I never understood why he was wearing shoes.
I made that up.
Oh, you lied. He told me it was supposed to be Tim Curry. It was supposed to be like Rocky Horror Picture Show, but
I lie from time to time.
But anyway, he did always have those high heel things on. But I was like a fan of this show. But it is one, like you said. Like I think I might like it now more than I did then. I don't know what it was then that it was. Maybe because it was so weird looking, because it had that Tim Burton vibe. I just wasn't like as like it wasn't like Rocko, where like I wanted to get home from school and I wanted to watch Rocko, and like Our Real Monsters was like, oh, Real Monsters on. I'm like, I'll leave it on. Yeah, I'll leave it on.
To me, it just didn't fit the feel. Yes, like Rocko was way more vulgar, and there was a lot more bizarre stuff happening in that than Rugrats and Doug. But at the same time, it felt more in line with those. Our Real Monsters just felt, to me, like to compare it to Disney, it felt like when Disney went down the road of Gargoyles. Darker, a little bit weirder, and for me, it just didn't align back then. Yeah. I still watched it, because it was part of the blog. You had to watch it to see what's coming next. It didn't feel like in that flow,
yeah. Well, apparently, they were saying that the designs of the monsters in Our Real Monsters were partially inspired by Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, I could see that.
Very specifically, they were saying the Gromble, because he bears a close resemblance to the Blue Meanie characters of that film.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I could absolutely see that. Yeah.
And then apparently the dump where the monsters reside in was supposed to be reminiscent of like Blade Runner and Brazil. The movie Brazil, and I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see that. I mean, there was a lot going on in that, but yeah. And this says the characters had a guest starring appearance in the 1999 Rugrats episode 106 Ghost Story. I think I need to watch that episode, unless they're just like the dolls or something. I don't know if they like, actually had the monsters in there, but
you got me there.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's no mention of them being as part of the revival, but. I would hope they would be,
Yeah, I just don't know if they were popular enough.
Yeah. Well, somehow they got Funko Pops, and my Rocko did not. But this will bring us into Hey Arnold, and this was around the time where I was starting to, I feel like, not watching Nicktoons as consistently anymore. I do like Hey Arnold though, but I was never like. I wasn't consistently watching it, like I said. But
this was 96, right?
Yes. Hey Arnold ran from October 96 until June 2004.
Yeah. See, for me, Hey Arnold actually it hit a lot because I was 9 years old when this came out, and so again,
you were the same age as Arnold.
It was right in that same age range, and of course, every kid my age, you watch Hey Arnold, you're like, oh my gosh, I want his bedroom. It's like he had the bedroom of the future that every kid just envied. So it was stuff like that just like really attached to that show. It was
what I always found really unique and appealing about it is it didn't feel like a typical cartoon show, because a lot of the stuff, like, yeah, he had the cool bedroom and everything, but it was like this kid living with his grandparents in like an inner city.
Yeah.
And
they ran,
it was kind of about his life. Yeah. And it was about that life. So it was really, I don't know, there was like something cool about that weird setting. For me, being from a small town, I wasn't used to,
Well, because it brought in the cast of characters of all the different adults that lived in the building, and they would go down the road where they would explore their problems. Like there was an episode where Oscar and his wife are having issues and think they're going to break up, and eventually he like gives in. So they go down that road. They also focused on stuff with all the kids that attended PS119, PS118.
No, I
can't
think
remember
it's
which one it is.
119. It's 118. 118.
PS118. I remember. Well, I always try to think of it with the episode where they're waiting for school to get canceled, and they like PS115, 116,
I remember that one.
117, 119. Oh yes, and PS118 too. But like they'd focus on those characters. So like one of the episodes I always go back to is when Harold gets caught stealing from a butcher shop and stealing meats, and then he ends up having to repay him by going to being an apprentice there. And it's like it's just such a weird it's such a weird plot line, but it's there's kind of that realism to it that everyone's different and everyone has different problems, and they really went to explore that.
I like that a lot. I also did you know that he's based on a Pee-wee's Playhouse character?
No, I did not know that.
He was created. It says Barrett Bartlett, the Craig Bartlett who created the show, says his show is his idea for the show was based on a minor character named Arnold, whom he created while working on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, I did not know that at all.
And you said that so now I'm thinking about his room, and I'm like, oh, that's very reminiscent of like Pee-wee's Playhouse, like his room. But also there was a movie. I did not know that. I did not remember that, I guess I should say. So there was a movie in 2002, and that involved, whoops, I just had it and I moved it. I'm sorry. It had Arnold, Helga, and Gerald set out on a quest to save their old neighborhood from a greedy developer who planned on converting it into a huge shopping mall. Oh yeah, now I do remember that. I remember that.
I don't.
Apparently, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Paul Sorvino, and Christopher Lloyd lent their voices to the film as well.
Wow.
But I guess it's also been. There's also they released a trailer for it. I haven't watched it yet because I wanted to see it. But Hey Arnold, the Jungle movie has been greenlit, is what they're saying, and that's going to premiere later this year in November. But that's supposedly going to pick right up where the series left off and answer some. Wrap up some storylines that had never been finished.
Yeah. All I want to say about Hey Arnold, if you only watch one episode to try to understand what the show is, you have to watch their first Halloween episode where they basically do a play on War of the Worlds. It is one of my favorite cartoon episodes of anything of all time.
Is that on Hulu too?
Yes, I believe it is also on Hulu. I think basically all the shows are now. Every now and then they drop off. Every now and then you lose some seasons of like Rugrats.
Yeah.
But I believe they are there right now.
So that'll bring us into the next one, which was KaBlam, which is not your typical like animated one. And also this was the first. It was the only Nicktoon that was specifically created for SNCC, the Saturday night programming block. So the series was created by Robert Mittenthal, Will McRobb, and Chris Viscardi. It was developed as a alternative form of animation.
Yeah.
And that's all. Whenever I think of KaBlam, I think of the action figures.
Yeah, Action League now. It's more of a variety show of.
It was just a bunch of shorts.
What was offered. Yeah, different shorts. It wasn't always the same, but they had the staples, like Action League Now, which was always going to be a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that was the big one. That was the one when it was Action League Now. I was like, oh, this one's funny. It had like the scuba diver. And
it had Stinky Pete, or Stinky, I don't remember what it was. And no, I loved Action League Now because the voices for that were actually all people that were DJs up in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah,
for a radio
says that right
station.
here too. That's really cool.
So I'd grow up listening to their voices on morning radio, like when my dad would have it on in the car, and then you see them on screen doing cartoon, the stop motion.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it was kind of cool like that.
I remember Prometheus and Bob too.
Yeah.
That was the other one that I remembered a part of this. But this ran for 4 seasons too, 48 episodes. So it was the typical 30-minute thing, but I don't have too much to say about this one. It was kind of the one that was like on whenever. Do you remember? I think we talked about it in the last Nickelodeon episode, but how they would do like you could vote
Yeah.
what would come up, and somehow it always was freaking KaBlam. And I was
Yeah.
like, God, come on.
No, I was never a fan, a huge fan. It was one of those ones like, oh, this is on now. Maybe I'll flip the channel, come
Yeah.
back to it later.
And this is like really where the transition, like, I remember started to happen, where it was like my sisters now were watching these shows, and I was kind of watching it with them, because the next one was the Angry Beavers, and I didn't consistently watch this one, but I watched it every now and then, which I actually found the Angry Beavers to be amusing.
I actually did watch it a lot just because while I was growing up, don't ask me why, my favorite animal was a beaver. So when this came out, it's like, they're making a show about my favorite animals?
Well, I loved it because it had the voice of Nick Bakay, who is Salem from Sabrina. So I always was like, I really liked his voice, and then the voice of the really like I'm sorry, the Daggett Doofus Dag Beaver was Richard Horvitz, who does the voice of Alpha 5 from Power Rangers. So it was like, I kind of like picked up on that I didn't know I knew that voice, but it felt comforting in a weird way. So, but the Angry Beavers ran from 1997 until 2001. Again, the magic number on a Nickelodeon TV show is 4 seasons, 63 episodes, an unaired 2001 episode audio recording. Interesting. But I mean, it is what it is. This one is one of those ones that I don't know that it has quite the legacy as some of the other shows. It revolved around Daggett and Norbert, the Beaver brothers, who left their home to become bachelors in the forest near the fictional Wyoutatown, Oregon.
Yeah.
And it just was kind of like the things they got into. Like, it wasn't really...
Yeah, even
I don't know,
even when it was on the air, it wasn't like one that they would repeat often.
Yeah,
they would go back and they would play Rugrats and other shows before it. So it was when there was new episodes coming on, you knew you would see it, but otherwise you didn't see it a lot in repeats.
It felt a little more like a toss-out cartoon. You know what I mean? Like like a filler. Like, it was like, okay, we've got this thing. It's kind of funny. This is the beginning of, like, you know how Disney Channel does all these shows where you're like, somebody just came up with a title that rhymed and then they wrote 15 episodes. The Dog with the Blog. Like, really?
But I will say, with Angry Beavers, it was a shame. I thought it was better, and it should have received more attention than the next one we're about to talk to, which I felt was on all the time, and I hated it so much.
I will agree with you, too. Although, I don't know that I haven't... Now that time has passed, I don't like it. Like, I didn't really ever like it. It was... because it was also in a lot of their merchandising was CatDog. It was like, there was macaroni and cheese CatDog. There was like CatDog SpaghettiOs, like everything. But CatDog ran, again, 4 seasons, 68 episodes, created by Peter Hanan for Nickelodeon. It's, it's pretty self-explanatory title. It is a dog and a cat, but how do they poop? Because the butts, it's like
They are connected together, so they don't have legs, and they don't have back legs. And essentially, they only have front legs, each of them, and just terrible. It was a stupid show.
It doesn't even have it revolves around cat and dog, a conjoined twin hybrid of a cat and a dog who share the same body with no tail or hind legs, and although they're best friends and brothers, they have very different personalities, similar to the Odd Couple, mixed with elements of Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello.
Yeah,
okay, this Wikipedia entry is being really generous.
Well, like, the dog was dumb.
Yeah,
and kind of very slow-minded.
Yeah, fun-loving.
And then Cat was kind of arrogant, almost like Salem in that exact way. I hated everything about this. I hated that the house, like, it's half bone and half a fish, and that's like their outside of their house, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I might be making it up in my head. If we can get through this one in the next 30 seconds, I'll be happy.
Well, Cat was voiced by Jim Cummings, who we know from a lot of Disney shows and stuff, and then Tom Kenny was the voice of Dog. But yeah, I don't really have too much to say about it because, again, this was another one of those, like, I didn't watch it a lot because of what you said. Like, it just seemed like it was always on. It had this really quick, fast theme song too. I remember that.
CatDog.
CatDog.
Long time ago was woof and a purr.
Yeah.
A baby was born and it caused a little stir.
Oh my God.
No blue fucking no. Yeah, no, I don't know it all, but I know a little bit of it.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the next one.
CatDog. CatDog.
This is one I'd never heard of, though. Oh Yeah Cartoons. An American animation showcase that appeared on the Nickelodeon cable, created by Fred Siebert, who was the former creative director of MTV Networks. and president of Hanna-Barbera. So I feel like with the name like that, it would have been a lot more. It was hosted by Keenan and Kel.
Yeah,
The second season.
From what I remember of this, it was also like a variety style programming, like KaBlam, and I think they used it as a test to see if any of the segments could be broken off into something bigger. The same way how with KaBlam, Action League Now became something bigger after KaBlam was over. So I believe it was the same type of thing, just different style.
It says in terms of sheer volume, Oh Yeah Cartoons remained TV's biggest animation development program ever, giving several dozen filmmakers the opportunity to create nearly 100 7-minute cartoons. It did have a couple of spin-offs. The Fairly Odd Parents was one of them. And then Chalk Zone and My Life as a Teenage Robot. I don't know those last two, but Fairly Odd Parents I know very well. How many episodes? 4 seasons, 39 episodes, 7-minute cartoon, 13. I don't know. This is one of those where I'm like, I mean, I think that's cool that they got stuff from this. I just don't remember this ever airing, I guess. Although now I think about it, I remember something being hosted by Keenan and Kel, but they were on everything in Nickelodeon, so it was like, it's hard to tell, but... and then this kind of led us to the next big one, which I did watch this a little bit because my sister Erica really liked it, The Wild Thornberrys. And it had the voice of your wife's boyfriend, Tim Curry, in it.
Yes.
As Nigel, right?
Yep.
But this one ran 98 until 2004. I don't think this one's part of the revival either.
I would hope it's not. It was always, first off, Tim Curry can't reprise his voice acting for it. This was another one. I think I didn't like it because of the plot right from the start, that the parents end up taking their kids to the jungle, and then Eliza can speak with the animals. Yeah. It's just
Eliza Doolittle, come on.
It never clicked with me.
Well, so the plot was the nomadic family of documentary filmmakers known as the Thornberrys, famous for their televised wildlife studies. It centers on the family's youngest daughter, Eliza, like you said, and her secret gift of being able to communicate with animals, which was bestowed upon her after having rescued a shaman masquerading as a trapped warthog. And they had the pet chimpanzee Darwin that she used to talk to. And it's essentially like her befriending animals in the wilderness or whatever.
Yeah. But it was a very, very loose show. I don't know how this was as popular as it was. To me, there was nothing really appealing about it. This was one I would turn off when it would come on. I'm sure I've watched a handful of episodes, but I probably no more than 5.
It says the series was designed to have a focus on parents after focus groups run by the creators uncovered that children were talking about the real struggles of the parent-child relationship. So that's why it was very like each character, characters were designed to appeal to different demographics. So sarcastic teen girls, the main character, Eliza, was for the young girl, and I don't know. It was this whole thing. That's why she's not strikingly beautiful. Anyway, but Lacey Chabot was the voice of Eliza, which is interesting. Yeah. We all know her from the famed Lost in Space film.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly
not
what
Mean
we think
Girls
of her
or
first.
Anything. Yeah. Or Party of Five or whatever. But anyway, but it ran for a while and it got that crossover movie. Yeah, technically. So it did well enough. But I guess it actually had. It had 4, 2 television films, 2 theatrical films. I thought it only had the one with the Rugrats.
No, I knew they had one solo film.
Yeah, the Thornberrys movie.
Yeah.
And it got an Academy Award nomination. Interesting. The Rugrats Go Wild was the second one, and then there was the first one was The Origin of Donnie. That was a prequel movie, and then Sir Nigel was the last one in 2003. Yeah, and I don't think... because of what you said, I hope it doesn't really come back because it will never be the same without Mr. Curry.
No.
And then that leads us to Rocket Power, which I know nothing about, but my cousin Nick was really into this show. So I know what the characters look like, and I kind of remember the show starting, but...
No, I did... I came back to Nickelodeon cartoons, especially for this one, while I was over the age range for it at this. I mean, I guess I was still in. I was 12.
Yeah, it was like aimed at older kids. It ran from 99 to 2004, 71 episodes.
Yeah,
so.
I probably watched it for 3 years. So basically, it's 4 kids who live in a California town right on the beach on the coast, and like the Rockets. Their dad owns a restaurant right on there too, and so it's basically all about like this was
Playing
when the X
extreme
Games
sports. Yeah, it was the
were
extreme
huge.
sport craze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Everything was extremely goofy movie.
Yeah, they they skateboard, they roller skate, they bike, they surf all the time, and it was just basically always revolving around that, and then little petty problems like the Sam, the spud as they called him, when he moves to town and he doesn't know how to do anything, so there's a lot of learning curve with like, oh, I can't learn how to surf, stuff like that. So there wasn't a lot of gravity in this show. It was very thin on plot lines, but I was into that. I was snowboarding back then and doing other types of sports. So this was like, okay, this is where this follows my interests. So
yeah.
I'm going to watch it a lot. But yeah, it's, expect a lot of coal dudes, tubular, stuff that we still say.
Devo did the theme song, so it's a big deal.
Yeah, well, we are riders on a mission, action kids, and play positions.
I can only remember
Rocket Power.
Maybe now I know.
I tried. If I can take only one thing to the grave, it'll be that I remember a lot of theme songs for television shows.
They just don't do them the same way they used to anymore. Well, that's it. That was the last one of the 90s. Then we've had many more since then. And it seems like they're on a kick of revival and nostalgia like everything else. And I will be watching for Rocko's Modern Life, obviously, which I'm super excited about. And I'm going to check really quick to see when that comes out. But we've already said what our favorites are.
Yeah.
So now we need to hear from you, which ones you loved. You can say one of the 2000 ones. That's fine.
We know that most people... if you didn't grow up with the ones we grew up, chances are the only thing you might know is SpongeBob, especially for a lot of the younger audience out there. So, and we're not gonna hate you if you say SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents. We won't respect you as much.
Like, what year did SpongeBob come out in? Why didn't we talk about that?
That's got to be 2001, maybe.
It was on while I was in high school because we did watch it because my friends, I had friends who liked it and everything like that.
2002.
I can't. It doesn't say it immediately when you go in here. Yeah, sorry. It must have been because it says it's been on for 11 seasons. But I know they're currently. It was off, and then it came back, and so I don't know.
Listen, you know what?
It had a preview in 1999, but the series. Oh no, wait! Why didn't we talk about this? The series officially premiered July 17th, 1999.
You're the one who did the research on this.
I did not write this down. I am sorry. Well, because in the list of programs, it doesn't. It has.
Shame.
It doesn't list SpongeBob in this list of programs.
Well, you failed.
It says
You failed.
Oh, because it's still on the air. It's the only one that's in the current running that started after it. Yeah, so that's my bad. I guess we can talk about SpongeBob then for a few minutes if you want to.
SpongeBob, the only reason why you should watch SpongeBob is because they make use of one of my favorite musical artists of all time, Mr. Tiny Tim.
Oh, gosh. When? Is there an episode where they have the tiptoe through the window?
No, they don't do tiptoe.
Okay.
They do I couldn't do the words off the top of my head, but it was like the living in the sunlight, laughing in the sunlight, having on ball. It's definitely it's in one of the episodes. SpongeBob, I understand the appeal. It was goofy. SpongeBob is extremely likable. Patrick is the good, goofy sidekick to it.
And it's funny. I mean, it is funny. I will give it that. It was something I just couldn't get into the craze because there is a tone in it that gives me a headache. Yeah, there it is. There were episodes that would be on. I worked at Toys R Us when I was in high school, and I remember they were playing episodes, and I would think, walk by and be like, oh, this is funny, or it'd be over at my friend's house after school, and he would be watching it, or his brother would be watching it, whatever, he was watching it, and it was there were funny episodes, and there's some adult humor in that as well. Not quite as present as it is in those earlier Nicktoons, but it's there, it tries to appeal to all sectors, I feel like.
Yeah, no, it definitely did, and yeah, it was just one of those. I feel like it was kind of in the same vein as Ren and Stimpy, that it was just kind of dumb humor throughout. So I'm sure a lot of kids were like breaking into their parents' booze stash and stuff, and watching SpongeBob at the same exact time. So I know as an adult. when I've had a long night, sometimes I'll like flip to Nickelodeon, and if I'm up very late, it'll be like 6 a.m. when SpongeBob comes back on in the morning, and it's pretty entertaining when you're nursing a
Yeah. Well, obviously there were films. There were 2 films, and then there was 2 television films as well. I have seen some of the original film. I know David Hasselhoff makes an appearance in it.
I haven't seen any of them.
No, not even the one where they turned into the superheroes from like 2 summers ago. But I will say there's apparently a ride too. Six Flags Over Texas has a SpongeBob SquarePants 4D film. But video games, I mean, this it's still ongoing, so this is clearly like one of Nickelodeon's greatest legacy things. It's synonymous with Nickelodeon. I mean, It is Nickelodeon, but it is their most successful thing. I will still say, I think one of the most missed opportunities at Universal Studios Orlando, or any of them, is there's no Krabby Patty to eat.
Yeah.
We got a Krusty Burger. Where's the Krabby Patty? I want to try it. But that will now bring us through the 90s. I apologize for almost missing SpongeBob, because I'm sure that is a lot of people out there's favorite, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Same.
So we want to hear from you. What's your favorite? If your favorite was after this, go ahead and let us know. Don't worry, we will talk about live action in another episode, because there's no way I can't talk about Hey Dude, Clarissa Explains It All, Are You Afraid of the Dark, The Adventures of Pete and Pete. There's just so much to talk about Nick in the 90s. But for now, we've been talking for way too long. Thank you, Craig, for having this discussion with me.
You're welcome.
And filling in the things I did not know. And that noise. And I guess that'll do it for this episode of DIS Pop.